Hi, I'm Laurita, and this is a story of how God planted me in a small group. After I studied at university, I went to Korea, as a lot of people do nowadays, to teach English and to pay off my study debt. And in the process, I completely fell in love with Korea, and I spent a lot of time there. I have a lot of really close friends that mean a lot to me. And so at some stage I came back because my sister-in-law was ill, but my plan was to immigrate. So I was in that process. I was back in South Africa at the time, and I really saw my time back as a very temporary move. I was literally living for getting back to Korea as soon as possible. I went to church the one night, and I don't actually really remember what the altar call was about, but I went forward and I just remember the Lord convicting me about not being in a small group. And I thought, okay, well, I can join a small group in the meantime. I mean, even if it's just for a month or 2 months, it's good. It's good to be in a small group. I phoned up one of my friends, and I didn't know who were soul leaders, and I didn't want to kind of just join someone on a list. So I thought I'd visit a few cell groups and to just get to know more of the people that are in church with me, and then kind of see where I would fit in, or, with the people that I would gel with. And I visited a few small groups, and at that stage I didn't have a driver's license, and my dad had to drive me around. And I ended up going to Jock and Esther's small group, and they were literally the furthest away from where I stayed at that stage. And I remember as my dad dropped me off, he said, please don't choose the small group. Please, can't you even join a different church that's closer to home, because it's a half an hour's drive. There were actually only 3 people at small group that night because it was around Easter, so a lot of people were away on holiday. Towards the end of the night, one of the guys in our cell group, he just looked at me and he said, I feel like we should anoint you. And it's not strange for me, but I was still a little bit shocked because I'm like this person visiting Saul, and they ended up anointing me. In my heart, I knew. I knew that this was actually where God wanted me to be, but it was a difficult decision to make because my dad was obviously my ride, and he wasn't very happy. But it kept kind of nagging at me, like, why would they just anoint me for no reason? The other thing that was really significant was one of my very close friends was living like 2 kilometers away from this house, and she started asking me a lot of questions about church, and I was very careful not to pressurize her into going to my church, but instead to just be part of a church. And somehow in my heart, I just knew that God wanted me to be there, and also for them to be able to slot in there, and for me to be able to introduce them. And the week after that, I went back to Sal because I wasn't sure. So I went back when all of the people were there because I wanted to kind of match my silly criteria. Turned out Esther was this girl that studied with me. And I walked in and she was like, oh, I'm so glad you decided to join our Sal. When she said that, I just kind of went, oh, okay. I ended up staying at my friend's house who wasn't in church. Her and her husband are now in church. They ended up joining that Sal through actually nothing that I've really done. The time they started joining the Sal, I wasn't even there. Like, I was in a different home group. But God facilitated for them to join that Sal, and I think they are where they are now because God made a way. And so even though God chose a really unlikely small group for me to be in, he had a plan. And the amazing thing is I've been in and out of Jock and Esther Sal like 4 or 5 times. Every time we just become a lot. But it's really been lifelong friendships, even with people who aren't in our small group anymore. People who have moved away are still really close friends. And I remember the one night that was really significant is Esther told us about something that happened in their family, like a family tragedy. And I remember her saying, I'm telling you this because you're my family. Small group is the place where I really learned what spiritual family is and what a continual accountability is with the people that you are in home group with and the people that you're in church with, and that those relationships are meant to be interwoven into your everyday life and not just something that happens every Wednesday night.